First and foremost, I'm only here to condemn the actions of Hasan Piker. To the FBI, I had nothing to do with this.
Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's
Alright, so Stavros happened to go on Hasan Piker's stream yesterday, which is interesting because I just talked about Stavros in my video yesterday, and the thing that I've been wanting to get to subject-wise is this subpoena on Hasan Piker. Probably all of you have heard about this right now, but supposedly there's a subpoena from the Trump administration for information from Hasan Piker and one other individual reportedly about this aid trip that they took to Cuba. So I've been wanting to talk about that, and this gives me a decent excuse to, because Stavros and him got together, and Stavros did what he always does with Hasan specifically, which is roast the shit out of him, which I thought was really funny. He goes particularly hard on Hasan, which I think is good. I think it's healthy for the discourse. Stavros gets accusations of being a lib and being unfair of his criticisms to the right, as well as anybody who defends Hasan in any capacity getting accusations of glazing him. So it's good for someone who is ultimately defending him and on his side like Stavros to also give him a little bit of punishment in the name of objectivity, but it also gives me an excuse to talk about the more important subject at hand. So real quick, this is Stavros just kind of roasting Hasan a little bit about his current troubles with the government, and then we'll get into some of the details there.
First and foremost, I'm only here to condemn the actions of Hasan Piker. To the FBI, I had nothing to do with this. Lock him up as far as I'm concerned.
That's
okay?
crazy.
Okay, I'm here. I don't want to jeopardize my movie career because of my associations with men who I was tricked into leftist politics by Hasan Piker, and I will testify to that, Mr. Patel. I know you're probably waking up from your afternoon nap right now, and I just want you to know, and to the people at Fox News, whatever you guys need, hit my line. I will snitch on Hasan. I will snitch on him.
You'll sing like a canary.
I'll sing like a canary. Whatever it takes to stay free. He did it all, folks. Whatever he's accused of, he did that and more.
You know what's crazy? For the past couple of days, like, first of all,
yes,
they leaked the story. The Treasury, I guess, leaked the story to Fox News. I find out from a Fox News journalist hitting me up to be like, you have a subpoena from the federal government, and I'm, my asshole's puckering a little bit.
Of course.
Like, the f is this?
They're like, they find the hard drives finally?
Oh my god. Yeah, the hard drives full of communism. Okay? But yeah, he's got the tefillin on. Yeah, you're that's true.
Oh shit, are these like, do they get these?
No, tefillin is the Jewish thing that you wrap your arm around, and it's got like a little box on it too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm a super soldier.
Yeah, he's leaning fully.
We pray for a speedy recovery, Mr. Netanyahu.
Wait, what happened?
I think this is
I saw a tweet from like leading report or something. It was like Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly in the hospital, but I never believed that.
I'm just in general wishing him good health, man. He's just
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I've been thinking quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been thinking. So all this stuff's got a little out of control.
Yeah.
Look, we were just guys on the internet. We didn't know how dangerous this socialism stuff was, guys.
I was thinking,
but I want to say, if you think it's too late for Hasan and you need to make an example of him, that's fine. Everybody else, though, everybody else should get a pass.
Yeah.
Everybody else who ever dabbled with socialism should get a pass.
But it's funny because, like, again, all of this stuff is in the air, right? Like, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, like, the Twitter sphere has decided, like, that it is real. Like, if you look at Twitter, I got a federal case. I'm already in prison.
Yeah.
And I'm leaking state secrets. I'm leaking secrets. And on the one hand, they're like, oh, why is he snitching? He's so dumb. And on the other hand, they're like, typical commie. Of course he would snitch. And
who are you even supposed to be snitching on?
No, I literally brought up like what the government's been trying to do about like a broader case that they've been for years pursuing against this guy, Neville Roy Singham. He's a really interesting guy. He's an activist, right? He's an American. He's like a centimillionaire, almost a billionaire, and he just like off and moved to China and living the best life.
Yeah.
Right? And they are trying to make him into like George Soros. They're trying to be like, oh, he's the other George Soros.
Yeah.
And I think they're just trying to, and they're make this seem like I'm snitching. It's on a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
So like, What's really funny, Stavi, your subpoena's in the mail, buddy. Oh, you're
La 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 la. That's what I'm doing as soon as I
Yeah.
get the subpoena.
Hasan claims pro-CCP tycoons sing him as financier of political movements despite non-profit veneer. It is a not like
First of all, shut the up. What is
Yeah.
the Koch brothers if not their whole shit was a non-profit veneer?
Yeah, but
that's how this shit works.
also. But what I find really funny about the broader thing that they're trying to do here is to try and make this into like China is doing Israel stuff on American soil, which is hilarious.
I know, it's like we have the people doing it are so clear.
Yeah.
It's like you don't
Like,
have to invent.
we-
also,
we-
China can just sit back and let us do our thing,
Yeah,
bro.
which is what they're doing.
the guy, whoever the job journalistically is to cover this bullshit, aren't you ashamed of yourself?
No.
You've let this. And here's the thing that's pissing me off: how important they've made your dumbass. You're dumb. You're a piece of shit. You shouldn't. No one on the news should know about you. You should. If you had slightly worse bone structure, you'd be making $40,000 a year on Kick right now.
Yeah, so I mean, Stav is really one of one when it comes to the roasting. It's truly the thing that has like set him apart in his career, his ability to really rip into people with like a lot of specificity. He's smart enough to get really specific, but some interesting things came up here. The main thing that Hasan says is that it's still kind of up in the air, like they don't really know. He hasn't actually been served this subpoena yet, so he doesn't officially know if he actually got or is getting subpoenaed, as far as I know. And the same is true for the other person who also got charged alongside him, the person who's in charge of Code Pink. Can't remember her name right now. I want to say Medea. So as of right now, neither of them have been served. This was just a leak that came from the government to Fox News. So Fox News printed an article that Hasan and this other person were being subpoenaed because of this Cuba trip. And it seems to be real. The way Hasan is talking about it is like it's real, like it's credible. It seems like the leak from the government is real, but the papers haven't actually been served. So it could be a stunt. It could be something that they wanted to subpoena and aren't actually able to for some reason. Something came up or they don't have enough of a justification or whatever, or it could very well be real. And what this is a request for information. So they're subpoenaing people to get more information about this Cuba trip. There's no accusations of any laws being broken. There are a lot of narratives floating around out there about how Hasan broke this law or that, or this sanction or that. I don't think that's true. I think that Hasan on his trip to Cuba went by the books for the most part. He got some criticism for going to like a fancy hotel while he was there, but that was one of the hotels that you're allowed to go to as an American, as well as having his paper straight with the Cuban government to go there and shoot a documentary. And he was coordinating with somebody within the government that made sure that he was at a hotel that had power, specifically so that he could stream. So there's no question that this trip was approved by the Cuban government, and it was facilitated there for that reason. Now, there's another example of Nick Shirley, who also did a Cuba trip for the opposite reason. He wanted to do a negative documentary about Cuba, and he went about it the completely wrong way. So he's there, he's in some hotel, he's like, they're after me, they're spying on me, they're down there in the hotel, we might disappear, they're tracking us. And it's because he didn't seem to have the authorization to go there, to bring his cameras there, to do this documentary as a journalist. It's like a journalist visa or something, which is what Hasan got when he went to Cuba. So Nick Shirley, because specifically what he was doing was less aligned with the Cuban government, had to do this more like covert thing and like sneaky whatever. So that was a trip that is more so sponsored by the US government. The US government is going to back him on any trouble that comes from that, or if he had, ended up in prison or something. They probably figured that out while he was there, that arresting him would be a bad idea while he was in Cuba. But it's just an interesting juxtaposition here, because people are going to point to Nick Shirley as like the righteous one because it's pro-America and anti-communist, and that is clearly the narrative that the Trump administration favors over what Hasan was doing. But at the same time, Nick Shirley literally broke American laws by being at a hotel that is sanctioned for Americans to be at, whereas Hasan didn't. So Hasan went about this trip in a more careful way. So that's why with the subpoena, they're not accusing him of breaking any laws, any sanctions, anything like that. Something like that could come of it, but it seems like they want to know if there's anything like that. And more so what they're trying to do is create this picture paint a picture of like a network of left-wing funding for projects like Code Pink and aid trips and stuff like that. So it gets to this guy, Neville Roy Singham, who is an American businessman who moved to China. And specifically in China, what he does is he works with the publicity department for the Chinese Communist Party. So he's a propagandist for the Chinese Communist Party. And I think it's important to be clear, at least based on what's on his Wikipedia, which Hasan mentions himself, as well as how he's regarded generally in American media. This is like a mogul, right? A rich billionaire mogul who is funding left-wing pro-Chinese Communist Party causes and propaganda. So that's going to be the narrative that they're going to try to find some substantiation for. And I think, frankly, with a guy like this, you're going to see a much less sophisticated network or entrenched network than you got with something like the Koch brothers or even some of the stuff that currently exists now. I don't think it's going to be approaching anywhere near that level of influence. But even just the fact that Hasan is a prominent Twitch streamer who's talking to Americans and he's connected to this guy in China who helps the Communist Party with publicity, that is what the government, the American government, is going to use to try to say that Hasan is essentially like a communist propagandist. So I don't think it's going to work. And like I said, I don't know that this subpoena is real, but it seems like the substance of it is going to come down to less of what Hasan did or didn't do, and more so what the nature of this operation is. And I find it hard to believe that they're going to find something so bad about this operation that it's going to end up making Hasan look terrible for being involved, because ultimately this was an aid mission to Cuba, and Hasan did a documentary highlighting the poverty there and how American sanctions are responsible for that, at least partially responsible for that, or largely responsible for that. The accusation against Hasan Piker is that he's an agitator. And you even see people in the Democratic Party saying that Hasan Piker fundamentally doesn't believe in democracy and undermines American democracy. But here's the thing. If this is a democracy that has allowed Donald Trump into power twice, and even some of these centrist Democrats that are going after Hasan are the same ones that acknowledge that American institutions have largely failed and are actively and are going to be hugely damaged by Donald Trump and the ideology that he brings to the table. That's the fundamental flaw of democracy, is that bad faith actors can get involved. So if we have enough room in the discourse for fascism like that to this extent to take over all the branches of government in the way that it has, in what way does it not make sense to have somebody who is speaking up for some of these communist countries, these narratives that never get spoken for in America? It is simply a blind spot that most Americans don't even realize they have. Most Americans never think about Cuba. They never think about the people of Cuba or how America has affected the people of Cuba and other communist nations, socialist nations throughout the world that America has specifically targeted with sanctions. One of the only few that America has not been able to cripple in that way is China. So that's what this comes down to, and I don't think Hasan is trying to undermine democracy. I think that our democracy is sick partially because we refuse to understand the relationship between America and communism, socialism, and these other nations around the world. And so Hasan Piker's doing a real service to the American discourse by being willing to do this. And speaking of which, here's a little bit more of Stavros and Hasan going over the kind of corporate Democrat aspect of this, where the ADL called out Hasan Piker once again. This is just, the pile-on is continuing and deepening. All this is only going to make Hasan bigger, obviously, and already has, but it doesn't mean there couldn't be real consequences. So here, on a little bit more of a realistic note, is Hasan and Stavros talking about the state of the Democratic Party and the fact that it feels the need to go after Hasan constantly.
ADL's posting about me again. Hasan Piker just accused a Jewish member of Congress being Israel first because he refused to condone a Nazi tattoo. Think about that. A Jewish lawmaker opposes Nazi imagery, and Piker's response to question his loyalty and suggests his views are driven by Israel. Piker is weaponizing the congressman is Jewish. First of all, I didn't even know he was Jewish. How the f*** am I supposed to know?
It's crazy.
And secondly, no, I said that because this guy, oh my God, bro. This guy, Jake Osterschloss, first of all, is unbelievably pro-Israel.
Yeah.
Secondly, he went on the Sunday shows and literally was like, I will refuse to endorse Graham Plattner, which literally means he doesn't want a Democratic majority in the Senate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You don't want a Democratic majority in the Senate because you want to make sure that Republicans still control the Senate so we can have a pro-Israel Senate? Get the f*** out of here.
I mean, dude, the Democrat, how the f*** can you even put any faith in that party? They're fighting such clear progress, tooth and nail. Even the losers. Like, look, obviously I'm busting your balls, but if you're a Democrat who's happy again, does he deserve his life? No, absolutely not. And I know a lot of you wannabe pundits are so jealous of this handsome piece of shit, and I understand that. I'm not jealous. Obviously, I have a much better life. I'm more fulfilled. I'm gonna achieve much more than him. And the stuff I put out will stand the test of time. My shit's not dumb VODs. I have art that you can watch, 50 years from now, and we're just getting started. Having said that, if you're happy that the government is subpoenaing people because they went on an aid trip against the country, they're clearly trying to punish just because, Trump's dick just got hard to be the conqueror of South America all of a sudden. If you think that's good, you're so brain dead, I can't help you. And it's just like this centrist bullshit is like more and more, I don't know if this, I do sometimes feel like it's a waste of time to even try and vote with Democrats.
There's no market for it at all, and they just have decided to give up on like trying to convince voters that it's actually the right way to get like an 85-year-old Israel First Democrat in office. So they just decided to attack people like myself because I'm like, working to get anti-Israel and pro-Medicare for all candidates that are like DSA backed and shit. And that's their new meta. That's their new method. They've decided, we're losing this anyway. We might as well all of the candidates that even win their primary.
And that's such the selfishness and of every centrist is a idiot, and they just are in it because they want to be famous. So much of politics, every right-wing pundit is a guy who washed out of Hollywood, and then half the people that even get into it go into that shit for that the stereotype of Hollywood for ugly people. It's so true of believe nothing centrist.
Yeah, some interesting angles here from Stavros, and this thing about how, even centrist Democratic politicians just want to be famous and, are in politics for that type of notoriety. So that's why they're willing to go on TV and say this brain dead shit about Hasan Piker or even about Graham Plattner, saying that they would rather Republicans take the Senate than have Graham Plattner win. These are Democrats that are saying this, people who are fully legitimized and unquestioned in their operation within the Democratic Party. They need to be fucking excised because just the existence of a candidate like Graham Plattner makes them say, I would rather sacrifice the Democratic majority. The head of a organization called Majority Democrats, who is arguing against a Democratic majority. And that was what Hasan Piker was criticizing when the ADL piped up to say, oh, well, isn't this anti-Semitic? So the level of depravity of this type of narrative is very ridiculous. The interesting thing about this is that people like Nick Fuentes, who position themselves as being against Israel and against the Israel lobby establishment, right? Like the attacks like this that happen when somebody criticizes Israel. And yet when it happens to Hasan Piker, he's fully on board and is even telling Trump, you'll win my faction of the right back if you arrest Hasan Piker and put him in jail forever. So that shows the delusion of Nick Fuentes, first of all. But it also shows that the whole, I'm going to vote for Democrats, I'm going to vote for liberals instead of Republicans, was only ever a leverage point. Nick Fuentes views that as a leverage point, and going after Hasan is enough of a concession to his side of the aisle that it would encourage Nick Fuentes to speak favorably about Trump again. And the reason for that is because Nick Fuentes just views Hasan as a communist and nothing else. And so going after a communist, putting him in jail forever, in Nick Fuentes' delusional words, is an end in and of itself. There doesn't have to be any concession on Israel, no change of foreign policy, no change of any of the policies that supposedly that flank of the right has had issues with Trump over. None of that matters. All that matters is that you target the right people. So that's truly the essence of the right-wing movement, and shows what I've been saying, which is that a lot of these people that are turning on Trump for one reason or another, Israel or something else, are going to just find another excuse to get back on board. And all Trump has to do is this different type of targeting enemies of the movement, enemies of himself. That is what people like to see, is him wielding his power. So I think this particular wielding of power is going to be a failure. Either it's going to completely fall apart before it starts, or they are going to exercise some kind of power against Hasan, and it's just going to backfire because he's just too visible. And ultimately, this is just going to create the type of backlash that will end up really being a cultural liability for Trump, which is already starting to happen on the right a little bit. And the left has been very thoroughly disillusioned. So this is the kind of thing that will remind people that there's real stakes here, and also that they're not invincible. And just because they throw the book at you doesn't mean they've won. And certainly not with a guy like Hasan Piker. He can definitely get himself out of whatever comes, and any type of repression they try to throw his way, he can just use to fuel the message that he has. And that's ultimately why, whatever criticisms I may have of Hasan Piker put aside, I think that he is the right person to be articulating this in this moment. And that's why they keep amping up the pressure, because he won't stop. He won't stop articulating the point. And, you know, even if they throw him in jail or deport him or whatever happens, he just needs to keep putting that word out. And I think things will work out. The reason they're doing this is because what Hasan does is genuinely a threat to the current order of America, more so than Nick Fuentes, more so than Tim Dillon, more so than Dave Smith, because Hasan Piker is willing to actually go to the root of the problem, which is why America does the economic things it does and the colonial projects it does on the world stage. No right-winger will ever touch that. And that's why the left is always going to be the one that is truly targeted by the state when it comes down to it.